Business Brain, episode 720 for Wednesday, January 21st. Thank Your Mentor Day 2026. Perfect. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Business Brain, the show where we take some ideas from you and from us. We crunch them, we dissect them, we use them to tune our business brains so that we can each level up our charmed lives each and every time we get together. Here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And I'm still out here in Lafayette, California. I'm Shannon Jean. I like that Thank Your Mentor Day. That's pretty cool.
That's a pretty good one for today.
Yeah, I'm going to send that email out.
There you go. Yes, I know. Yeah, exactly. Today, it's not just us, Shannon. We are joined by the Director of Product Management, Head of Payments at Intuit, Juliana Berger. Juliana leads teams focused on how money actually moves through a business, including payroll and payments and all those fun things, and how those systems scale as companies grow. Juliana has spent her career at the intersection of finance and technology and real-world business operations, including time at companies like American Express and Citi. She's also a member of the Forbes Finance Council. And today we're going to dig into payroll not as a back-office chore, folks, but as a real business lever that entrepreneurs can use to level up. Juliana, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure to be here. And wow, what an intro. You do it better than I ever have. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Happy to do it. As I was looking through your stuff, I realized you, when I saw that you worked at Citi, I also worked in what would have been called fintech at Citi at the time. But this was like 30 years ago, and that term wasn't even close to exist. But we were doing online banking. It involved dial-up and some other crazy things. But, there you go.
I must tell you, I went to Wharton as a business school, right? And I remember I go back and I give speeches and someone asked me, how did you decide to get into fintech? And I'm like, guys, fintech didn't exist when I was in business school. It wasn't a term. It wasn't a thing we studied. It grew, right, over the past couple of years. So I hear you. Fintech is a new thing for us to all be exploring.
It wasn't until today, when I was prepping for all of this, that I realized that I, too, was also in fintech. Like, I never even thought of it in those terms. But, that's where we were. So you've spent all this time doing this, and we know that cash flow is the heartbeat of any business. We talk about it here. Cash flow is more important. It's the first thing you need to worry about before you even start thinking about profits or any of that. You've worked through all this stuff. You've seen a lot of things and what founders do. What are some of the ways that founders misunderstand how all of the systems, the AR, the AP, the payroll, the payments, even lending, what are some ways that founders misunderstand how those systems interconnect?
Yeah, great question. And look, I think the biggest misunderstanding is that they think about them as independent jobs to be done, right? And the reality is that these are fundamentally interdependent systems. Think about it as a pipeline, like the pipeline that runs underneath your city.
Okay.
Right? Long pipes, twisted pipes, big pipes, little pipes, all with different valves, right? And if you've got a blockage on one side of the pipe, it's going to have and can have potentially catastrophic impact to other sides of that flow, right? And that's, I think, where businesses fail. In fact, 50% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And 80% of them say that they have cash flow issues, and the top reason for actually cash flow. And I'd argue that it's not just because they run out of money. It's because of the difficulties in timing, in leverage, and in visibility of money, right? If you have an invoice that has been served and is going to be paid in 30 days, that invoice that's going to be paid in 30 days can't help you make payroll on Friday. And even if that invoice is paid that day, you've got settlement times, you've got chargebacks, you've got payout holds, things that again, those cranks in the system, right? And the blocks and the valves and the pipelines that make managing money really about timing and visibility. It's important to have buffers. It's important to have, liquidity. It's important to have that visibility, strong predictive tools so you can survive.
I'm sweating just listening to you say all that because it's so true when you're just like, I think we should have this money. Where's it at?
People are like, where's how much money do I have in the bank? Or
yes,
that's how they think, is like in boxes of jobs. And no, you got to think about the flow and how it all connects.
I think hopefully somebody listening gets to learn this lesson from you and from us here and not having to learn it themselves by the hard way, as often happens. Because I'm sweating through, Shannon. I'm remembering those times and knowing that they'll happen again.
We've all been there, and it's really important to get that fundamental, like every lever you pull, it's going to impact this other thing, like you said, with the pipes and all that stuff. So, yeah,
I like the idea of the pipes. When you were saying that, it reminds me of like the mycelium of like mushrooms and the whole system of like the woods don't, like our outdoors don't work without the mushrooms like being that conduit that communicates everything around in nature. And it's like there's a lot more below the surface than there is above the surface, and all of these things. It's the butterfly effect, right? You know, they're all impacts. Yeah. So now we have this. What can we do to unify this vision of all of these things, right? And as founders, how can we have one clear, single view of where is the money? Where's the cash?
Yeah, look, unifying money flow comes down to one thing, and it's turning fragmented financial activity into one shared truth. I love the example that you just gave about the mushrooms, right? And connecting the forest in place. That's what it's all about, right? It's the connectivity layer that matters in terms of unification. But I want to mention that it's not just about connection, right? How many times have you connected an app or to another app and the data doesn't flow through very well, right? Or the connection falls. And so it has to go also beyond connection. It has to go into clear data. It has to be accurate data, and it has to be relevant and contextual to business context. And to me, this is where QuickBooks really shines. We actually have, if you think about it, every dollar in and every dollar out for all businesses that we serve. We have an incredible amount of data. And then you pair that incredible amount of data with the full suite of payroll, bill pay, payments, and lending. And then you power that with AI tools and trusted live experts. You can actually deliver pretty incredible automation.
Have you seen anything that kind of is a shining example of this, of either what to do or what not to do, either way?
Yes. So I think QuickBooks, obviously very biased, but I think QuickBooks is a shining example of that.
Sure.
And as I mentioned, right, I think one of the powerful things that QuickBooks has is that we can see every dollar in and every dollar out for all the businesses that we support. And then when you power that on top of our services offerings of payroll, bill pay, lending, and payments, and then on top of that, you power it with contextual AI and trusted live experts, you can create not only that unified view of cash flow, but really drive cash flow insights into action that can help the businesses make the right decisions so that they can survive.
Absolutely. It makes sense.
Cool.
I want to ask you to share again when we were talking and setting all this up, because these things, they don't just make a difference for the business and the what's on paper. They make a difference for real people like all of us here. And there's a humanity to this that was really articulated well, I think, in a story that I'd love to have you share about a candle maker.
Indeed. So thank you for bringing that up. So I spoke to a customer once, and it's one of my favorite parts of the job is talking to customers. This wonderful woman who makes soy candles. And if anyone is interested, please reach out to me. I will always pass on her information. And this woman was using 16 disparate tools and apps to manage her business. 16.
Sounds familiar.
Apps, right? That's crazy. And so I was talking to her about, what are some of the cash flow management challenges that she faces? And she talked about the anxiety that she feels, right? And the fact that she's constantly trying to reconcile between these different tools and the fear that keeps her up at night because she constantly feels like she's missing something. And in fact, her story is not unique. We actually know that on average, businesses have on average between 10 and 12 different apps or tools that they use to manage their business. That's an insane amount of apps to be going back and forth just to see how your cash flow is working.
And that's an insane, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
That's an insane amount, even if every one of them is accurately sharing and accurately and efficiently sharing your data among them. Where it gets even worse, which is most of the time, is when you as the human have to be the one to move the data between those
you're
tools.
the conduit, right? Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
nightmare.
And then human error. I mean, that you've just created opportunities for human error, as if we needed more of them, right? So, yeah.
100%. I mean, in fact, we know that businesses spend on average between 25 hours a week just in data entry and reconciliation between these apps.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
nuts.
crazy.
But
Yeah.
we've all been there because you're right. We're trying to, we went this dashboard, right, of what's really going on in my business, and especially now where there's we talk about revenue stacks and all these different revenue streams. So if you have money coming in from all these different areas and you're using different processing or whatever, it's really important to be able to tap into that stuff because it's brutal when you don't have it.
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'll ask sort of maybe a more straightforward question. What should we as business owners be looking at to determine not just where we are, but the overall health of our business's finances?
Thank you for asking this question. I think it's such an important one. I want to be very clear on one thing. Businesses tend to think that the more money you make, the healthier the business. And that's not always the case. I see very successful businesses. We've all seen this in our life, right? We see it even on TV, like massive unicorn businesses that fail, right? The healthiest business are those that have the most durable and predictable cash flow, because then you can optimize and project your growth. You know where to invest and you can manage risk. That is so important, right? It's all about predictability and durability in your cash flow. It's not about how much money you're making today. So with that in mind, I recommend businesses look at three particular things.
Okay.
First is cash flow, right? How much money is coming in every month? How much money is coming out, right? What is your net at every month? What are you growing month over month? Is your business seasonal, right? Some people can feel like they're cash rich because they're a high season. I live in Miami, right? So a lot of travel and entertainment or high season, you can feel like you're cash rich. The low times can feel a lot of cash strappedness, right? So number one is knowing your cash flow. Number two is knowing your cash efficiency. So what does that mean? Days sales outstanding, days payable outstanding, your DSO and your DPO. In the simplest of terms, your DSO is how much time it takes someone to pay you once service is rendered. Your DPO, or your days payable outstanding, is how much time you take to pay your vendors. Okay, so money coming in and money coming out, but the efficiency of that. Now, businesses that have high DSO and low DPO can have a lot of contracts and a lot of business, but unless they manage it well, they're actually going to be very cash strapped because it's taking a while for money to come in, but they have to pay out immediately, right? And so knowing that and knowing how that impacts your business is really important to managing the health of your business and the longevity and durability of your business. And last, but certainly not least, is resiliency, concentration of risk. Is all your business based in one place? Is it based with one customer? What is the concentration of risk? What kind of liquidity buffer do you have? Do you have insurance? Right? You can be making a lot of money, but how many stories have we heard about one storm or one lawsuit pushing a business into the brinks of bankruptcy?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely. Sure. I love this. I certainly thought about these concepts for the DSO and DPO, the days sales outstanding and days payable outstanding, but I've never heard those terms before. Are those new to you too, Shannon, or have you heard that before?
I haven't think about it. It's, I've done weekly cash flow, cash in, cash out, monthly cash, but the daily, and that's pretty cool.
How many days am I waiting on average? How many days am I waiting on average for both receiving and sending money? That is I want to go. I'm going to go and I'm already thinking about this with my businesses. What are those days? I have a sense of it because otherwise you can't really run a business, right? But seeing those numbers would be very enlightening, I think. And it's an easy exercise to do, folks. Right?
Well, answering those questions, like I said, where's the money? I've always had businesses that have inventory, which is a whole nother, animal to manage, and
Yeah.
you're like, wow, we made all this money, and just like, where is it? And then, oh, it's in the warehouse, or it's in like this, we're paying this out. Our receivables are so high, this kind of thing. So it's super important to dig into this stuff. It's not my favorite thing to do, but because I'm a sales guy, and I, as you were describing those terms, I'm like, she's telling me that more sales don't fix every problem, isn't she? But
They do in the short term, Shannon.
yeah, I know, I understand. They're related. It's another pipe, right? But it's super important to be able to dig into that, or have somebody that on your team that's digging into that for you.
Shannon, I'll tell you one thing. You are not the first person to tell me this is not their favorite thing to do. And so
Of course.
that's the proof of business owners, right? And like, I'll tell you right now, I've spoken to hundreds of business owners. Nobody tells me the reason they got into business is to manage their AR or AP. And that's what keeps them excited about running a business. And so that's why it's really important to have tools that can help you automate your AR, your cash flow, your money movement, so that you can focus your time on doing the things that you love and the whole reason why you got into business and living that kind of life.
Oh, very nicely done. We always say the only people that got into business to manage money, to do accounting, are accountants.
That's right.
And the rest of us just find that as one of the hats we have to wear, or outsource if and when we get to a point where we can do that. So we talk a lot. You mentioned automation. We talk a lot about automation and AI. In fact, on our Friday episodes, they have completely become, we call them our FridAI episodes now, because that's all we talk about. Because it's so important to business owners and to running a business. It's a way of getting a leg up and making things more efficient. Of course, it can take you in another direction too, but when used properly, can really be a valuable tool. So let's talk about the AI, the automation. Where does it create more work? Where does it eliminate more work? Where is it beneficial? Where is it not?
Yeah, great question. And it can create more work, right? So it's important to know how to leverage. First, I'll share a little bit of a stat. I shared before that 25 hours a week, right, is what businesses are spending in data entry and reconciliation between these tools. It's also 17 hours a week that businesses are spending on average with manual administrative tasks related to payments.
Wow.
That does not include bill pay. That does not include payroll. That is just payments. That is literally chasing down payments or reconciling your expenses towards it. It is an insane amount of time. If you think about it, it's 3 hours a day of your working day. It's a third of your working day on manual administrative tasks. And so
I want to start.
Right?
Totally.
It's terrible.
Like AI matters and automation matters, and it can be a really powerful tool, right? But it is only powerful if it is accurate. That is the fundamental thing. It must be accurate, right? And so in what scenarios is it accurate? It is accurate in repeatable and predictable circumstances, right? Things like late fees, things like recurring payments, things that you can easily trigger and automate. Those are no-brainers. Automate all day, every day. That's going to save you time so that you can focus on the things that matter. Now, when automation is inaccurate, it can breed an absolute world of chaos, right? You can start to silently collect miscategorizations. You can start to trigger late fees to customers that have already paid. You can trigger payments when you don't have money in the account. It was in those scenarios, you're going to spend way more time correcting the issues than you actually were doing it and manually in the first place. And it's not just about the correction, it's the trust that is lost, right? Both you and your customers, as well as you and that tool. And so it's so important for you to make sure that you're also looking at tools that have a high standard for that quality standard for automation. We at Intuit obviously have that. We hold ourselves to the highest standards. If you use us for QuickBooks payments, for example, we know that we can automate and auto-reconciliate over 95% of your transactions just by using our tool, again, with that level of standard. So it's all about the accuracy. Accuracy matters.
Nice.
It makes sense. There are moments. I'm a QuickBooks user. I've been a QuickBooks user for a very, very, very long time.
We appreciate you.
Of course. And I appreciate you too. Like it's a very valuable tool. There are moments of frustration when I'm going through and reconciling things, and it chooses not to auto-categorize something because it falls into that 5% where it can't be certain, right? And as frustrating as it is that it's like, oh, I got to go manually do that. It's like, well, wait. That's way better.
Yeah.
That's way better
It's a good thing.
than if it were to like just say, oh, you know what? I'll guess. It's fine. And then you don't catch it. And now a year goes by and at best, someone catches it. Maybe your accountant says, you have some weird expenses in this category. Let's talk about it. And it's like, oh, I don't have expenses in that category. It's like, why do you say I have expenses in that category? It's like, that would be the best case of a worst case scenario, right? That the accountant catches it and it's caught before it's a real problem, right? But yeah, no, I agree. The accuracy is important.
Yeah.
What's that?
No guessing.
No guessing.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
No, leave the guessing to us humans. At least then we can blame ourselves. So well,
perfect.
And we know where we guessed, right? It's so and of course as a business owner, I mean, you try to make data-based decisions, but sometimes you're trusting your gut, and that often is what got us into being successful in business in the first place. So that's fine. But you know where you trusted your gut. You know where you trusted the data. And when there's a question, you know where to look, or at least you were there, and maybe you remember. If the AI is making those guesses and not telling you it has guessed at this, oh man, then you don't know.
Yeah,
and that's
you'll never see it.
You have no way of knowing. Yeah.
That's why guardrails are actually really important, and we think about that a lot in terms of how we build products. And there's sort of three levels of guardrails, right? That I think they're important for us to think about. First and foremost, permissions and approvals, right? Especially with things like bill pay or payroll, right? You don't want a machine or an AI or to be doing your payroll automatically for you without any type of approval or permissioning. You need to build that in so that you have the right proper controls in place, right? So it can guide you in what's the right thing, but you want to have that trust that the lever is in the human hands, right? At the end of the day. The second is exactly what you just spoke about, Dave, which is visibility. Right? Visibility and defensibility of that information. It matters so much to be able to have the full insight. But also not only the insight has to be defensible, right? The recommendation has to be defensible. They can't just recommend out of nowhere. You have to understand where that insight is coming from and why that recommendation is what it is. And again, it's visibility, but also defensibility of that insight. And then again, controls, right? It is so important to be able to have thresholds, to be able to have alerts, to be able to have a pullback lever or an undo lever. All of that allows us to create a system in a world where we can all move forward in combination of automation in a world of trust, right? And we have to have both. We have to have automation in a world of trust for us to be able to use these tools.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, I'm pausing here because I'm thinking about the tools that I don't trust as much as I would like to. And I'm not convinced they save me any time. Mm-hmm. They certainly distract me. And there's there's an argument to be made. Okay, well, how much time does that distraction cost, right? Versus the things that I can just rely on and I know are going to work for me. And I know I can trust, and that's the key, is not having to I think we're probably as a society learning more and more about the cost of distraction. We've certainly created enough distractions to create a data set to evaluate.
Sure.
But yeah, the cost of those distractions, if you have a tool you can't trust, or any other kind of distraction for that matter, but in the context of what we're talking about here, just having a tool that you can't trust, it could be the difference. Profit margins are so thin in so many businesses that it's those edges where you're actually making all your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And just being able to track it and understand why something happened the way it, like you say, where it's categorized, what happened to that. And we're so busy. And if you're the founder and you're running around closing deals or trying to, work customer acquisition, that kind of thing, you're not focused on that all the time. So being able to jump in and see it is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always liked QuickBooks. I used to train people on it back when I was in Austin, Shannon. Yeah.
Back in the day.
Fun fact.
Yeah, a little fun fact. Yeah. Yeah, I never advertised that as something that I would do, but people would be like, "Oh, you use QuickBooks?" I'm like, "Well, for my own things," and they'd be like, "Great, come and train me on this." Like, okay, never forget the first time I walked into an office to train people. I haven't thought about this in 30 years, Shannon. To teach somebody QuickBooks, and I realized what I was actually doing was teaching 10 people how to use QuickBooks. Like I was offering a class, not
Workshop.
just a yeah. I was like, I was petrified that day. It's no wonder I forgot about it. But valuable things, and and I loved teaching people because I would always learn something too. So that's part I love. So yeah. Folks, I guess that's our way of saying, if you have questions about QuickBooks, feel free to send them in, feedback@businessbrain.show. We're happy to help. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Is there anything that thank you for doing this with us, Juliana. Amazing. And I love, Shannon and I get so in the weeds with different things all the time. It's a pleasure to have another mind here, another voice here, and just taking things in a different direction. Is there anything that you have in mind that you want to share before we say goodbye to everybody?
First of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on the show. It was a pleasure to spend time with you today. So thank you again for the opportunity. Yeah. And also thank you for being a QuickBooks customer and also advocate and teacher. So that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you see the power of QuickBooks and the tools that we can provide, obviously in this space as well, right? With our AR, AP, payroll, and lending solutions powered by AI. And you talked about trust, right? One of the things that we offer as well across Intuit, TurboTax as well, is trusted live experts, right? So it's not just about doing it yourself. It's marrying everything together. It's having that unified cash flow view. It's powered by AI and incredible analytics and data, and then combine that with the trusted live experts. That's really where the value is. That's what gives businesses the confidence to be able to survive and thrive. And as I said, live that charmed life.
Love it.
That's great.
Thank you for doing this
very much
with us, Juliana. And if folks, if you want to look at Juliana's history, I'll put a link to your public LinkedIn page in the show notes at businessbrain.show. Thank you for doing this with us. Thank you for everything that QuickBooks does, and thank you to QuickBooks for being a sponsor of Business Brain here over the last year or maybe even more. So it means a lot, and we love when we get to partner with companies whose products not only that we trust but we actually use. So, yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah.
And now we're friends. Also, anytime you have any questions on QuickBooks, you know who to reach out to.
See, there's a method to our madness here, folks. Yep. We always say it's about the people you know. Yep. It's about networking, right? So thank you, Juliana. Appreciate that. Folks, thanks for hanging out with us. And of course, feedback@businessbrain.show. As I said, thanks for hanging out. Juliana, thanks once again. And folks, we'll see you on Friday.
See you Friday.
Keep living that charmed life.